Well, certainly in the countries where we intervened, in Iraq and in Afghanistan, the net effect of what we did was not positive. But these wars have been winding down for a while now. We saw the withdrawal from Kabul a few days ago, which was very traumatic. But the process of getting out of Afghanistan and also Iraq has been going on for a while. And I think what we're seeing now is essentially a bookend, this 20-year period since 9/11, which has been referred to as the global war on terrorism. That period is coming to an end. I don't think we know what comes next, but certainly it will be different. Certainly there's a reduced willingness on the part of the American people and government to engage militarily as we did in the past 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, Barbara, what's your assessment of the last 2 decades? After 9/11, the US invaded Afghanistan, it kicked out the Taliban, and now 20 years of war, thousands of lives, trillions of dollars. A lot of people are asking what it was for.
Well, look, for those who were in the United States during that period, the shock was enormous. I think it basically unhinged many people, the thought that the United States could be attacked in that way in our homeland. And a lot of what happened afterwards was vengeance, pure and simple. And I think that the administration of George W. Bush made a colossal strategic error by declaring war on all terrorism of global reach, basically going after all kinds of terrorist organizations that had any international links, instead of focusing just on Al-Qaeda, just on Osama bin Laden. That was a huge mistake. It led us into Iraq. It led to problems with Iran, which had helped us in Afghanistan initially. It destroyed the focus, and it began these endless wars, although, as the ambassador points down, the U.S. involvement in those wars is finally ending. I'm not sure that either Iraq or Afghanistan is going to see complete peace, however.
Sure, but President Biden has signaled a shift in foreign policy, suggesting he doesn't want the US to police the world. How will this affect US foreign relations going forward, particularly with Iran?
Well, the United States is trying to convince the Iranians to get back into the nuclear deal that was negotiated under the Obama administration. The Iranians are understandably distrustful and are playing very hard to get after the experience of the Trump administration withdrawing. But Iran has issues that it has to contend with, particularly economic problems, which will be exacerbated, frankly, by the Taliban takeover in Afghanistan. A lot of refugees are streaming out again into Iran. Iran is not happy with the makeup of the provisional government, which has no Shia members, as far as I can tell, no Hazara. It's all Pushtun and very militant Taliban. So I think this is a bittersweet time for the Iranians as well, and they're doing a lot of recalculating.
Jake, the fear now is that Afghanistan could again become a safe haven for terrorism. Do you think that is a realistic possibility?
I think it's a possibility, but it depends on how the Taliban approaches this. They know the experience of 20 years ago, where they basically gave Al-Qaeda a safe haven that led to the attacks on 9/11, that led to the American invasion. I don't think they want to repeat that. However, whether they're able to establish a government that's effective at controlling the territory of the country remains to be seen. They may say now that they don't want to have attacks launched from their territory against the United States. Whether they can actually do that or not is an unknown. I think if Al-Qaeda does reestablish itself in Afghanistan, that's a very troublesome thing. In the U.S., as President Biden has been clear, the U.S. won't stand by and let that happen. I don't think we want to re-engage in the same way we did before, but we're not going to allow Al-Qaeda to operate freely again and take the risk that 9/11 could be repeated.
Right. So how do you think then, Barbara, the US should deal now with the Taliban in Afghanistan? Because the UN is saying that foreign aid needs to continue to flow into the country to help a country in crisis. How should the US deal with the Taliban in this new era?
Well, it's very much wait and see. I think the administration is pleased that the Taliban allowed a flight to leave with Americans and other foreigners on board from Kabul. I think the United States is going to continue aid through NGOs, through the United Nations relief agencies, but it will withhold formal recognition for quite some time until it sees whether women are allowed to work, whether girls can go back to school, whether there is any kind of legal system worthy of the name. There's not going to be a rush toward recognition, that's for sure.
And Jake, do you agree? I mean, how should the US deal now with the Taliban going forward?
I agree with what Barbara said. I think the administration is being very pragmatic. They're dealing with the Taliban when they have to, for example, in terms of American citizens and others coming out. And that's in our interest to continue to do that. But in the longer term, I think it will depend on how they act on terrorism, on human rights, on women's rights. And those things all remain to be seen.
And so, Barbara, do you think that a deal with Iran over its nuclear program is still feasible? I mean, President Biden ranked it a top foreign policy priority when he took office. It's looking less likely that a deal can be done.
Yeah, I'm very worried that the government in Tehran, which is now being run by hardline elements, will not come back into compliance, that they think they've survived somehow the maximum pressure campaign of the last couple of years, and that they can rely on China and the neighbors to get through this. But I think that would be a massive miscalculation. Iran has a lot of money that's still locked up in foreign bank accounts. It can't get access to it. It needs sanctions relief. So I hope that perhaps in another couple of weeks, the Iranians will return to the talks, that they'll let some of the current members of the negotiating team remain, people with experience in this area, and that we can at least get back into this agreement. I think it's very important.
And Jake, just lastly to you, President Biden says America is back, but after the chaotic scenes of withdrawal we saw from Afghanistan, as a diplomat, what do you think he means by that?
Well, I think he means that we're going to continue our alliances with the Europeans, in Asia as well. We're not going to disengage from the world. We're just going to engage in a different way, and that will be through diplomacy, through humanitarian assistance and other means, but not turning every issue into a military conflict as we have over recent years. I think that's for the best.